Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Roll call. Madam Vice President today.
Madam President, unfortunately, Katie Browning and Louise Jackson are unable to join us today, and Dr. Beresford is still out. But the few and the mighty are still here together this evening.
Okay, we have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now move on to the presentation portion of this meeting. Mr. Hester.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the board for inviting our student athletes and recognizing their accomplishments. I know it takes a little bit of time, but we're very grateful. And before I recognize our coaches and athletes, I would like to first give a special thank you to the parents that are here. I know it's a lot being a parent of a student athlete, a lot of the late nights and a lot of time in a car picking kids up from practice, dropping off. So I know that's also, it can be challenging, and especially around Carmel High School with the parking. So thank you very much for all of your support of our coaches and athletes. So first, I'd like to recognize our unified flag football team. They won their first state championship this past October with a 68-45 victory over DeKalb. And this is the first state title for Carmel in any unified sport that's offered by the IHSAA. At this time, I would like to ask Coach Jamie Steffen to come up, and she can introduce our student athletes who were able to be in attendance tonight. And unified flag football athletes, partners, you can go ahead, come on up.
As they're making their way up, I would also like to add that beside me, I also have Coach Ryan Lippard and Coach Kate Scott. I want to add that I've known all these kids for a minimum of 4 years, but all of a sudden, I feel like I don't know a single one of their names because it is now my job to say their names. So let's hope we can get through this. First and foremost, like you said, state title. We are very proud. It's our first, but it will not be our last, but we could not have done it without this basically senior class up here, 90% senior class. They're unbelievable. I'm going to start right here with Vinny, and if you could just hold your hand up when I say your name so I know who each of you are. This is Vinny, and then we have Joe, we have just kidding. Thomas, come on across. Joe. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize they were going to grab something. So Joe, and then Thomas. He didn't hear it. It's okay. I'll do one at a time so they can pass that out. Brayton. Will. Stone. Emily. Sophia. We'll get it done. Okay. Stella. Samuel. Danny. Nicholas. I know, I could have called you the other one. Ben. And a special shout out to Danny, Sammy, Sophia, and Emily, and Brayton, our senior captains. They were all standing by each other. How did you get down to them?
Let's give another round of applause for our unified state champions in flag football.
All right, on to boys tennis. Our boys tennis team defeated Columbus North 3-2 in October to secure the program's 15th overall state title and their 7th in the past 8 seasons. The team finished with an undefeated record of 27-0. Our senior, Jonathan Yang, was also honored as the recipient of the IHSA Mental Attitude Award. He is the 4th Greyhound boys tennis player to win this award, and it represents academic and athletic achievement. At this time, I'd also like to welcome our head coach, Dan Burnett, and he will introduce the athletes who are here.
Hi, first off, I just want to say thank you for welcoming the tennis team here, the boys tennis team. It's quite an honor. And these young men had great season. Obviously, they were 27-0. But beyond that, they had won previously 6 years in a row. Last year, we had a tough loss in regionals. And so to bounce back in the style that they did was absolutely incredible. I would almost say whimsical. In the idea that they came together as a team. We had so many fun times together, learning experiences, along with just, like I said, enjoyable experiences. And it was a truly memorable season. So memorable, I want to just recognize, probably a little bit out of the ordinary, but we also have a member of our freshman team here who's wearing his gear. So that's the kind of team that we had. Okay. It was a special season, not just 27-0, but a record of 131-19 in dual matches for a winning percentage of 83.77%, which, as you know, in tennis, you can lose more points than you won and still win a match. So, incredible record. They won 71.33% of the games they played. For a remarkable season. They came through a lot of adversity. We had the John Shirley Invite, which they won, which is the largest invitational in the state. We had some rainouts. We had a tumultuous state tournament run, which ended up where we thought we would be at North Central to play the state finals, and we ended up in Greencastle, Indiana. And it was about a 14 to 15 hour day. So despite that, these guys did their best effort and, like I said, enjoyed the experience. And that's all he could ask for as a coach. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and say these guys' names. And first off, we've got a senior and Braden McIntyre. Next, we have Jonathan Yang. We've got Rocket Lee. Grant Moo. Oh, yeah. Wesley Warbell. And Michael Baugh. I would also like to make sure I say thanks to David Liu, who was not here, and then also my coaching staff, assistant coach Mark Brandeman, assistant coach Mitchell Mercer, and our freshman coach John Foss. It was a tremendous season, and these guys have a lot to celebrate. Thank you.
And parents, we will be taking a break after these couple presentations that we have, where we will leave time for you guys to leave and get home since it's a school night, just so that so you know.
Hounds on three. 1, 2, 3, hounds.
All right, and finally, our boys cross country team. They won their second consecutive state championship on October 28th and the program's 18th overall state title. The Greyhounds tallied a score of 76. The state runner-up team from Fishers finished with 185. The 109-point difference was the largest margin of victory since 1981 and the third largest in state finals history. This time, head coach Colin Altabot coming up.
Thank you, and thanks to everybody here. This is obviously such a big community effort, and we appreciate all the support from the schools, school board, and our parents on what you're here today. I'm going to announce our 8 that ran for us in the tournament. Freshman Jonah Call. Sophomore Carter Burr. Juniors Kiefer J. Jack Capes. And we had 4 seniors run for us at the state meet. Max Meisner. And 3 all-state individuals, Thomas Biltemeyer. Kyle Grove. Kyle is going to Butler to run in the fall, and Tony Provenzano sends his regards. He could not be here tonight, but he's in my class tomorrow, so I will grab it. Thank you.
Congratulations to our state championship cross-country team.
Next is a presentation of the Community Service Award. I'm going to step down here. So tonight we're presenting a Community Service Award in thanks to individuals who helped with the passing the referendum in November. And so we have a couple of them. We have them here tonight and want to say thanks for the hours that they put in towards helping our school be able to fully fund our teachers and staff and everyone else. So the first person. First we have Stephanie Flitner. Thank you, Stephanie. And Nikki McNally. And John Shapiro. I know, right? And as they're going up there, let's just give them another round of applause for their support for our community. So right now, we're going to take just a little bit of a break for those of you who came to watch the recognitions so that you can get home on this school night, and then we will resume in a few minutes. And employees, patrons, or students, comments shall be directed to the board, but no person may address or question individual board members. And then the school board will not act or respond to questions or comments made during public comment, but we will take them under advisement. We have one audience member for public comment tonight, Mary Strinka.
So I guess I can take 30 minutes, right? My name's Mary Strinka. I've been a Carmel resident for 28 years, and I have two sons who are now adults who were part of the school system. Since we were here last month, I spent a little bit of time researching the Indiana State Language Arts Standards. And I brought with me today a copy of the grade 6 reading comprehension standards. There's 13 items. I just want to highlight 3 of them that are here highlighted as essential, meaning they are expected to be mastered by the end of the grade level. Excuse my voice. Number 1, analyze what a text says explicitly as well as draw inferences from the text. Number 2, determine how a theme or central idea of a work of literature is conveyed through particular details. And number 3, analyze how a particular sentence, chapter, scene, or stanza fits into the overall structure of a work of literature and contributes to the development of the theme, characterization, setting, or plot. So this is the age level at which we expect our developing readers to be able to go beyond the literal meaning of a word or a phrase in isolation and consider it in the context of a larger work. Now, considering that this is what the state of Indiana expects of 12-year-olds, I will say I'm sometimes astounded here when I see adults who come to the school board and they encourage our media specialists and our language art experts to make decisions about books and other reading material based on a level of literary analysis that would not pass middle school muster. I have great empathy for the team of professionals that will be charged with responding to challenges as they come up, and I would certainly encourage them to use these standards, maybe not the 6th grade level, maybe the 8th grade or 10th grade level literary reading comprehension standards in what we expect our adults to contribute to this dialogue.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our consent items. Tonight, consent includes personnel report, claims, payroll, gift applications, and the December 18th school board minutes. So just a reminder about what consent items are. This is sort of what we consider our housekeeping part of our school board meeting. It is things that we have to legally address but should not take up considerable time. So that, like I said, it's the payroll, accounts payable, and minutes from any other meeting. So we incorporate that into one consent agenda so the meeting can kind of be streamlined. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will move on to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We will now move on to our action items portion of the meeting. Our first action item this evening is the adoption of policy 6146, debt management. Dr. Dudley.
Thank you. So this evening, I bring before the board recommendation for approval of policy 6146, debt management policy. At our last board meeting, Mr. McMichael shared the reasons why we needed to make some changes to this policy. And so I would bring it to the board and for a recommendation for approval.
May I have a motion to approve the adoption of the changes to policy 6146, debt management?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll take a vote then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. The next action item tonight is the change orders for the Carmel High School Performing Arts Center addition and renovations management. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. The total change order amount is an add change orders in the amount of $156,881.95. These are multiple change orders as this project's near completion, and there's detail in your report as to the specifics for the need for the change orders. Most of these have to do with unforeseen conditions that that project, as you know, included significant work with the existing building, and oftentimes when that's the case, there will be unforeseen things that couldn't be identified prior to starting the project.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the change orders for the Carmel High School Performing Arts Center addition and renovations management?
Could we have some comments?
After we, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I so move.
And a second?
Second?
And discussion.
Just wanted to notice, or make a point to the public that we see a lot of change orders on these big projects.
and they're a lot of money. This one's particularly a fair amount of money, but the question always comes to mind, are we within planned budget? And we had some discussion before. I thought maybe you could explain a little bit about where we sit with that, with this one and the next one, so we can kind of move that along.
Yes, when we have a large or any significant facility project, in this case, this project was about $25 million, I believe. But what we routinely do is we will provide what's referred to as a contingency allowance of 3% for each contractor, and that takes care of items that fit within that. These change orders are in excess of that, and so in addition to what we provide for each contract, we also maintain typically, it depends on the project, but in this case, maybe about 5% of the project for general contingency to cover larger change orders like this one, for example. And overall, when we do a project, depending on the project, in addition to the construction cost, there's also what we refer to as soft costs, which includes such things as architect fees and various professional fees, but also contingency allowance. And so a new project will typically, we anticipate the need for less contingency because there's less unknowns when you start from scratch. And then a little more on projects that involve renovation. And this is, we're within the funds that we have available.
Okay. So even with this change order, we're still on target?
Yes.
From a budget perspective?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll now take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next action item is the change orders for the Carmel High School natatorium addition and existing natatorium renovations. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. This is a total add of $9,133, so fortunately much smaller than the previous one. But it actually nets out to a less than $500 because a significant portion of the $9,000 is actually being charged back to other contractors. But these contractors are doing additional work, so that's why it's still a change order for these contractors, but there's a deduct change order, or deduct really, not a change order, but a deduct from other contractors.
May I have a motion to approve the change orders for the Carmel High School natatorium addition and existing natatorium renovations?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next action item is the bid awards for the West Clay Elementary renovation. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. These bids are for what we call mid-cycle. It's finishes within the building, carpet, vinyl, paint, and so forth. And I'm pleased on two accounts. One is we received good participation. You can see we received 8 bids. The total amount of the award is $1,063,584. And the second thing I'm pleased about is that this bid is under the estimate by about 15%, I believe. So it was meaningfully under. And as you know, we've had some that have been over, and so it's good to see that maybe we're our estimates are kind of catching up with the reality of the marketplace, and it's well within the budget that we have available.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the bid awards for the West Clay Elementary School renovation?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. I was just going to say that this is one of the buildings that we toured. Greg, when was that? In the spring?
Probably in the spring, yes.
In the spring we toured.
Before we started.
Knowing that these renovations would happen. So we were able to tour the building and see what needed to be done. And that was something that I think Greg and a couple other of us have asked so that we know when we're spending the money, where the money's going, and what it's going for. We will now take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The next action item tonight is bid awards for the Carmel High School Freshman Center renovation. Again, Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. This is also for replacement of finishes, and it's in the amount of $1,664,810. and really the same response. We had, we had reasonable competition, and these bids were also under the estimate, so well within the budget that we have for the project.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the bid awards for the Carmel High School Freshman Center renovations?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Roger, these were similarly under our budget for the projects?
They were, I believe, about between 10 and 13%, somewhere in that range, but
That's great.
yeah.
And is this also considered a mid-year
It is.
cycle? Okay.
Yeah, this building, they were about a year apart. This building, I believe, opened in 2005 in West Clay, I believe in 2006, so right about the same time.
Thank you. We'll now take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the discussion item, the first reading of policy 5414, therapy dogs. Dr. Dudley.
Yes, thank you. So as you are aware, we have several therapy dogs throughout the district. Dr. Beresford has a therapy dog, Jim Dandy. And the therapy dogs are used to work with students and staff, for emotional support. We've seen some great things where students may be dysregulated, where they can go and see the therapy dog and they get, re-regulated because they take, they have the opportunity to snuggle or pet or what have you with the therapy dog. And so it's great, and many of our schools do have therapy dogs. The change to this policy is we have come across where we have people that are bringing pets to campus during school-sponsored events or during recess time or during drop-off or dismissal. And that becomes a safety concern. We actually had one of our SRO officers last spring get bit by one of these companion pets. So the change in this policy is just that companion pets are not permitted on the school premises or school-sponsored events, because that has been an issue. We're not, we still very much support the therapy dogs. It's just the pets that are coming onto campus.
Thank you. Any board members have any questions for Dr. Dudley?
Seems like a good idea.
I just wanted to add that we did kind of discuss this previously. I wanted to put out there what I had asked about was to clarify that this was just for pets, but obviously we can't stop. Service dogs are welcome, but this is specifically just for pets,
Correct.
Not for therapy or service dogs. Correct. We will now move on to reports. Dr. Ostrike.
Good evening, President Coquet and members of the board. Tonight, during this evening's Staff and Student Services presentation, we are in the process of staffing right now, and we just began this process. And so, therefore, I know the board had some conversation at a recent meeting about how do we determine how many teachers we're going to hire each year, what the number of sections in each class look like. So I have a short presentation this evening to talk a little bit about our process. And I do want to start with, this is a very collaborative process with Dr. Dudley, and she and I work very closely together to look at all aspects of our staffing. And so, Dr. Dudley, at any time you are welcome to share anything you'd like. But just today, we sent out our intent to return survey to all of our teachers and certified staff, instructional coaches, and so on. And the great thing about the intent to return is it tells us, for planning purposes, who's coming back. If a teacher is interested in a different position in a different school, maybe a teacher lives on the west side of the district and wants to teach on the east side of the district, so on and so forth. And so also tells us who's going to, thinking about maybe they're moving to a different state or they're going to retire. So this is a great piece of data that we receive each January, and that kicks off the planning process for Dr. Dudley and I. Then in February and also into March, especially for our middle schools and high school, we have staffing meetings. So we meet with the principals of each school, and Dr. Dudley and myself, and we take the intent to return data, we analyze all the intent to return data, then we analyze all the enrollment data for 24-25. We call that the roll-up numbers because we're rolling those up into the next year from this year. So we analyze all of that data, we look at trends and things that are taking place, and then we're going to determine, okay, how many sections of fifth grade are we going to have at Prairie Trace Elementary School? What courses are going to be offered at the high school that have enough student enrollment? Do we need to add any sections to science at the middle school or at the high school level as well? So we look at all of those pieces with the principals, and then the principals share with us, maybe they might be requesting an additional social worker, or they have a need in the school that they'd like Dr. Dudley and I to take a look at and examine. And so those staffing meetings are critical to the success of working with our current staff members, as well as taking a look at all of the data and planning for 24-25. Then in February and March, we have teacher recruitment fairs that we go to, many universities that we attend. We hold our own recruitment fair, and we partner with Westfield and Noblesville and HSE and Zionsville, and we host our own, which last year was highly successful, and we're doing that again this year. Then in April is when we notify our staff members of what their placement is going to be for the next school year. Pretty much it looks from year to year, people like to stay in their same buildings, but for those that made a request that they might want to transfer, we let them know at that time. And then in May, we have continuing ongoing hiring on into the summer. So if someone decides to move at the last moment, we would make those decisions at that time. We are very fortunate in Carmel. We have one of the lowest turnover rates in the state when it comes to teachers and administrators. So we're very happy about that. But of course, if you have over 1,000 teachers in your district, there is going to be some turnover from year to year. And so the intent to return survey, as I spoke about earlier, just some of the data and information that's in there, their building position, if they're interested in a transfer. Sometimes they might be a leave of absence because they know, the teacher knows that they're expecting a child next school year. And then we also look at those potential resignations and the retirees. They get to list their top 3 preferred building assignments. Also subject areas. We are also very fortunate in Carmel. We have quite a few teachers that are licensed in many different subjects and areas. And that's very helpful if there is a need from time to time. And then we have them make some comments. And some of those comments are very useful for us as we take a look at what I said earlier. Someone might be interested in a change. They may want to go to a different side of the district based upon where they live, and so on and so forth. So our teachers received that intent to return survey today. And then I talked a lot about the staffing meetings that take place. At the high school, the reason why we have the high school and middle school meetings a little bit later than the elementary school is because our students and our parents are putting their course request in, and that takes a little bit longer, especially at the largest high school in the state of Indiana, for our counselors who do amazing work with our parents and with our students to get those course requests in for next school year. And then we continue to analyze student enrollment and teacher openings, as I said, throughout the spring and the summer. And so that's something that we, Dr. Dudley, and then we get Mr. McMichael involved as we get towards the weeks that lead to the school year, because is there a place where we need to add a teacher at the last moment? Is there a place where we might not need a teacher at the last moment if we had a resignation that came in late and we may not replace that teacher because of enrollment numbers that maybe didn't pan out? And so we are constantly looking at that data, meeting, analyzing to ensure we're being fiscally responsible with the dollars we have in the district, but also ensuring that we are meeting the needs of our students that are enrolled at each of our schools. And so that is the quick version of staffing. This quick version that I presented to you takes months and months and months and many, many hours of meetings and taking a look at the data. But I just want to say thank you to our teachers. We appreciate our teachers, our counselors, our administrators, all of our staff in our buildings do a tremendous job. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Just a question on specific on enrollment. I just happened to be looking at the numbers for Clay Middle School the other day, and I noticed they were around 1,400, and Carmel Middle School was quite a bit less, it's about 1,000, some number like that. Do we also look at that as where maybe we need to redistrict, or are we okay? Do we have enough teachers at Clay compared to Carmel to handle that?
Yep, thank you for your question. We definitely have enough teachers. Last year, we made some adjustments at Carmel Middle School. They had some teachers that were in excess based upon the enrollment numbers, and so we moved some of those teachers to Clay and to Creekside. So we are not overstaffed, we're appropriately staffed there based upon the number of students that we do have.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, thank you so much for that report. And on behalf of the board, I think we can say thank you for all the teachers and staff. We would not be here if that's part of why we are here is to help support you. Next, Mr. McMichael will present the monthly financial update.
All right, I'm better at handling the money than I am the technology. Fortunately for you. Okay, well, this is, as you know, the end of the calendar year, but it's halfway through our fiscal year. So it is a month, December, ending December, we take a little closer look at than some of the other months, but we, for our purpose, the end of the fiscal year is June 30th, not the end of December. But at any rate, so in our education rainy day and referendum fund, we're in good shape there. We're about where I would have projected. We ended the year with $14.4 million in cash. If you compare that to 22, it was 11.2, and so it's increasing by design. About 2.4 million of that increase is a result of, we transferred money, as you know, from our operations fund to the rainy day fund, which has been our financial plan to increase our cash balance. And so and then we had some additional growth simply because as our budget grows, we set aside that percentage to keep up with the cash balance as a percentage. So we're at about 10%. We'd like to get the balance up to about 12 or thereabouts instead of a minimum of 8. And then if we go to the operations fund, it happens to be, we ended at 5 million. Last year it was 5,142,000, so basically the same. That's probably a coincidence as much as anything because this fund is not has a number of things in it besides salaries, so it's not as predictable. Every 2 weeks you're spending money on salary, although there's significant salaries in there. And so, but with that, I'll respond to questions if you have any.
Any questions? Greg?
Yeah, just wanted to share some of the discussion we had earlier on this. That you look at these. I look at them from perspective of what I've seen in the past with companies, and it works quite a bit differently in some regards. And perhaps you could help us just all understand that when I look at, for example, like the education referendum and rainy day funds.
Yes.
You look at the aggregate number on receipts. And, you know, we're up, where'd he go? $5 million, is that?
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons behind that. If you could explain that, that would be, I think, helpful to the public.
I can. I'd note that you asked these questions previously, so you're not just throwing these out off the
Right,
top
right.
of our head. But let me get to that specific question, though. But yeah, so of that 5 million, 2.5 million, as I noted, is actually from that transfer of operational funds, or from the operating fund to the rainy day fund. We also received about $2 million more in tuition support, but I'd note we as compared to what we budgeted. And so that came about because our enrollment actually came in higher than what we assumed when we budgeted. And if you looked at 22, it was the opposite. So trying to avoid that, we were more conservative when we built this budget. And then as a result, then our enrollment did come in higher, thus we receive more money, but we also spend more money because with more students, we need more teachers and so forth. And then we received about $400,000 more in excise tax. And so it's not like an additional uncommitted $5 million. We just basically, we grew more, or our enrollment went up more than, or at least it didn't, well, it went up a bit, I believe, but it didn't decline, at least as it did the prior year. And then, but about half of that was simply the transfer from the operations fund to the rainy day fund.
Yeah, and that's an interesting phenomenon, because I know that we can't typically spend monies across funds, like we have the operations fund, not to be confused with the operating referendum, but the operations fund is more for operating things, buses and those kinds of things. But there's at some point we can move that money into like the rainy day fund, and then we can use that across those funds. If you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so in Indiana school finance, we, as you alluded to, we use fund accounting, which essentially each fund has a purpose. And historically, you can't use operations fund to, or, you know, for transportation, you can't use that to pay teachers' salaries. You can't use debt service fund and borrow money, basically, and then use that for personnel. And so that's one issue. However, under the rainy day statute, you can transfer I think that the statute says something like unneeded or unencumbered additional or revenue that's not committed. That excludes the debt service fund, by the way. But in the operations fund, for example, if our and they are right now, if our expenses are coming in at less than our revenue, and some of this is by design, then some amount that's less, it has a cap on it of like 10%. We don't even approach that, given how large of a school district we are. But then you can transfer those unencumbered funds, which means they're not already committed for some expense that you're obligated for, to the rainy day fund. And when you do that, then the rainy day fund, unlike the other funds, it basically can be used for anything the school board approves. And so that's pretty much what you said. When it's in the operations fund, it's to be used for the intent of that fund. But if it's moved out of the operations fund, but of course the only way you can do that is if you happen to have excess funds. And so like that's not going to happen in the education fund because we just don't have excess funds there. If we, you know, that's specifically to educate children, which is why we're here. So with the exception if we were trying to build some cash balance, but generally speaking, we're going to spend all the money that we have there to fulfill the purpose and the mission of the school district.
So could we spend this actually like on debt service?
Never have. I suspect we could.
But you could, I know you have the rainy day in the category alongside education and referendum, we could spend that on operations.
Well, yes, so that we choose to combine those funds because we look at them in total, particularly the education fund and the referendum fund. We all know that, the referendum we requested to kind of supplement the education fund. In the rainy day fund, more recently, we've included that in part because we see that as at the moment at least, we see that as an opportunity to make these transfers from the operations fund to the rainy day fund. If we were fully committed in the operations fund, then that wouldn't work. And so again, we want to increase our cash balance. One is we've had a minimum for a long time of 8%. And sometimes people hear that as either maybe maximum rather, but it is actually intended to be a minimum, which is really a very conservative position, probably because that's what I've recommended, but because I don't think we should, accumulate excess cash at the expense of taxpayer, because that's where the money's coming from. And at some point, it doesn't do any good just sitting in the bank. But like at home, if you have some savings, unexpected things happen, and you have shortfalls and so forth, or you declining enrollment, all kinds of things. And so it certainly is still conservative to have closer to a 12% balance. And then finally, we also, Standard & Poor's would like to see our balance be a little higher than what it has been. And given the amount of bond issues that we have and their rating, that's very important to us because we have the highest rating in the state, by the way, but there's no other district that has a higher rating, but we want to maintain or even do better than that because the higher the rating, the less interest you're paying on borrowed money. So all of which is to the benefit of the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Just to comment that it's such a complex machine, and you and your team do such an excellent job managing it and making sure that these reserves rise to a level where we can have a more favorable bond rating. And then you explain it so well so that everyone in the community can understand. So thank you very much.
Thank you. One of the hardest things to do is to explain something that's complex in a simple manner because I realize that most people aren't doing what I'm doing and dealing with this every day.
Thank you, team. That was a nice discussion. Next, Dr. Ostrike will be presenting the school board governance norms and legislative updates on behalf of Mrs. Browning, since she could not be here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, President Koke. So for the school board governance norms, we are going to delay that to the next meeting when Mrs. Browning is here because that's typically something the past president will present to the current president. And so we are going to skip 7.3. But she did ask me to present 7.4, the legislative update. And so on behalf of Katie Browning, who is our legislative liaison, and also Dr. Beresford, they've worked with the board to come up with our legislative letter for this session. And Mrs. Novus, if you could please project it. And so we do believe that educator recruitment and retention must be a top consideration when developing education policy, and thoroughly evaluating all policy proposals through this lens should be the priority. So we can set Indiana apart by sending clear messages to current and future educators that they are valued, trusted, and we have their backs. And so our goal remains that we want to partner with our legislators at the State House. We want to be someone that they can reach out to. We can provide a credible resource from the field on matters relating to educating our children. And so we think that's very possible. And so while we offer to help with any policy considerations related to education, here are some of the examples of common interests that we have identified. And so as you can see up on the screen, workforce, I talked briefly about that, but our schools certainly continue to be the foundation for the future workforce, and we want to ensure that we have a pipeline of outstanding teachers that we can select from to educate the future of our children. Also, we are looking at regulatory relief. And so Indiana educators, this may be interesting, we have 450 plus mandates in Title 20 of Indiana Code and 511 of the Indiana Administrative Code that are without expiration. And so we did receive some relief this last session, which we are very appreciative for from our legislators, but we would love for them to continue to take a look at that burden that we have to spend numerous hours, and sometimes we're repeating ourselves by providing different reports and data to the IDOE through Indiana Code and Administrative Code. So we ask about that. Also, on my way pre-K, so any exemptions for K-12 schools to provide early interventions and eliminate barriers to early learning to provide greater access to pre-K is very important to us. We just successfully passed a referendum, which we are very thankful for. However, the language in the referendum laws, we would love for our legislators to take a look at, especially taking a look at what's permissible with regards to communications, and then in ensuring voters are informed before heading to the polls, and especially the misleading ballot language that we all took a look at here recently. Gap accounting. So this may be something new to everyone, but Indiana Code 5-1-11-5.3, we believe this needs to be replaced. This is a requirement that has resulted in an average annual cost or increase of $114,000 to our district, and it consumes approximately 900 hours of staff time for CCS. So I know Mr. McMichael is working with some of our other districts who are required. And the reason we don't believe this needs to be in place is because we are audited regularly from the State Board of Accounts. We have lots of internal controls when it comes to our budget. And this is something that is really, and it's only for ADM, schools with ADM of 15,000 plus. So it's not that many schools in the state, but it has a major financial impact and a major impact with the number of hours that Mr. McMichael and his staff have to devote to this Indiana code. And then finally, student safety. We are very fortunate to have our fantastic SROs that are in our buildings. They are Carmel Police Department members and officers, and we're very thankful that they're in our buildings. But anything that our legislators can do that increases student safety within our buildings and our district is something that we are all for, and we would love to be a partner in that. So finally, what I'd like to share at the bottom is that we at Carmel Clay Schools stand ready to partner with our legislators as a resource from the field on all matters related to educating our children. We are committed to doing our part to promote Indiana as a destination where educators are valued, respected, and supported, as well as a place with very strong schools where families want to live and raise their kids. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that the board may have.
Any questions, comments? Greg?
Yeah, there was a Indiana School Board Association webinar the other day that was quite informative on legislative updates, and I noticed that they had mentioned the bill, talked about it most of the time, HB Bill 1219, and it's on trying to eliminate some of the duplicative regulations and burdens and that. And they had mentioned a few things, and I won't go through those, but do we actually like sit down or have someone go down and talk to the legislators about real specific things that's creating a burden on our teachers and administrators to make sure that they hear that, or do we rely on the School Board Association to represent us?
So I would say a combination of both. This Wednesday, actually, David Woodward is heading down to the State House to speak on a safety bill and share from the field our feelings on that bill. And so it is a combination of both. We have the School Board Association, but if we feel very passionately as an administrative team, as educators, we do, just as Mr. Woodward's going down this Wednesday, we do periodically go down to the State House and testify.
But yeah, it sounds like this bill is going to go forward, at these early stages, but it might be a good opportunity to really get down there and tell them, because I'm not sure if what they're going after are the biggest priority items that we might have that would help us.
Thank you for that update. And our last part tonight is the superintendent's update that is going to be given to us by Dr. Ostrike. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him. He has been covering for Dr. Beresford while he's been out, and he has had a lot to do, a lot of early mornings with the weather we've had. And so we just, a shout out to him for the excellent job and the leadership he's shown.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I will say I saw Dr. B on Friday, and he is doing well. He is recovering well and should be back in no time. So we're very thankful that he'll be back soon, and it is a pleasure to serve. So thank you, President Koke. Today's the big day. Kindergarten registration is officially open, and so head to our website and search enrollment to get started. We appreciate the early enrollment because it actually is the start of our staffing process, as I just presented on. And so by enrolling now, we can prepare for classroom staffing and scheduling those kindergarten screeners that Dr. Dudley and her team takes care of. So enroll today. Also, congratulations to our CHS Theater and Film group who took first place at the statewide Thespian Conference this weekend. The group also won Best Ensemble, so we are very proud of them. And in addition, we're going to jump to sports next. We want to wish our Lady Hounds good luck as they enter sectional play this next Tuesday night when they take on Fishers, tipping off at 7:30 p.m. at HSC High School. Also, our Carmel men's basketball team strung together a couple big wins this weekend versus Pike at home and on the road on Saturday versus Brownsburg. I want to commend our half notes that performed at halftime during the Friday night basketball game, and they were absolutely fantastic. And so our half notes are our students in grades 4 through 6 that are interested in show choir, and they performed with our Carmel High School ambassadors. And the whole floor, they had, well over, probably close to 200 students on the basketball floor, and they did a routine, and it was special. It was fantastic. So congratulations to those 4th through 6th grade students, and also Kyle Barker, who was leading the group and all of the rehearsals. So that brought a huge smile to my face. And then in addition, our swimmers and wrestlers continue to compete this winter season, and we are excited as they are approaching their sectionals in the coming weeks. And for our bell ringer for this meeting, I need to send a very special thank you to our bus mechanics, our bus drivers, our maintenance staff, and our custodians this week and last week. Wow. They are our true heroes. Thank you. They are working so hard to keep our students safe, have a warm and comfortable learning environment. They face a plethora of issues this time of year due to the weather, and they always rise to the challenge. Also want to send a special thank you to Gary Clevenger, our transportation director, Todd Fignolio, our facilities director, and their entire teams for the numerous hours as well as their extremely early hours. They are up taking care of business, getting our buses ready, having our buildings ready. There's always going to be something that pops up when it's cold outside, and they certainly rose to the challenge. I do want to say that we will be monitoring the weather tonight and early in the morning. And one thing I've learned filling in for Dr. Beresford, that no matter what decision I make with regards to a cancellation, a 2-hour delay, or going on time, I'm never going to make everyone happy. But what I can tell you is that I am on the road right before 4 a.m., driving the streets of Carmel with Mr. Clevenger, not in the same car. He's got a route, I have a route. We're driving the entire district to ensure the safety of our students and our staff. And we're going to make the best decision possible for the safety of our kids. And so it may not be the right decision for your family, but we're going to continue to do our best. But we are out on the streets assessing the conditions, and we will be out on the streets again tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. To see what the weather brings us. So I told Mr. Brown, I hope it's an easy decision, whether it's just all rain or maybe it is all ice. But I hope it's one of those, and when it gets in there, those 50-50 decisions, that's when I get lots of emails and phone calls that Mrs. Nobis sends my way. But we appreciate you all. We thank you for your understanding, and go Hounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ostrike. I wanted to let you know of a couple upcoming meetings. On Monday, February 5th, our school board will have an executive session to train us as school board members. Monday, February 12th is the school board workshop session. Monday, February 19th is President's Day, so all of our schools and our offices will be closed. And then Monday, February 26th is the school board regular session. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Meeting adjourned.